History is but a million stories, and since the beginning, historians have been there to tell them. But honestly, they could be a little nicer about it. Minnesota Tonight presents the passive-aggressive guide to Minnesota history.
Well, hi there. This is Dottie Gunderson from the Minnesota Nice Historical Society, and I'm here to talk about the founding of St. Paul by a one-eyed bootlegger named Pierre Pig's Eye Parrant. Now, I know this fella is a bit of an embarrassment to those folks across the river, and in fact, he reminds me of my Uncle Todd. He likes to have a few. Nobody likes to talk about him. And he's got an eye patch. See, Parrant wore one because he was actually blind in one eye, unlike Uncle Todd, who was just trying to evade the authorities. The eye he could see out of had a white ring around the iris, making it look like the Kringle Linda Jacobson brought for the field trip fundraiser. When we told her that those were more of a Wisconsin pastry, she did the right thing and threw it away. So that's where his nickname, Pig's Eye, comes from, which isn't very nice, and I certainly wouldn't say it to his face, as true as it might be. Anyway, back in 1838, we get all this land from some treaties we signed with the local Ojibwe bands. Now, I'm sure the government did all they could to make those treaties fair, kind of like my third cousin Bill. The dropout, he tried really hard too. Right, so anyway, Pig's Eye was a French Canadian, which is fine. I don't want to say he was an obnoxious, old, ugly, drunk piece of shit, but he was kicked out of just about every place he went before he came here. So take from that what you will. Anyway, he finds a spot downriver called Fountain Cave, named so because it had a constant stream of water coming out of it. Now, if it was a constant stream of failure, they could have named it Cousin Bill. But that's neither here nor there. So Pig's Eye starts using the crystal clear waters of our pristine Minnesota habitat to distill whiskey, which isn't really what I would have done, but you know, I'm not here to judge. He also builds a shack at the mouth of the cave to sell his devil's juice, and that ends up being the first building in St. Paul. And if you ask any of those St. Paulistas about the whiskey-soaked dirt underneath those fancy brick streets, well, just listen to this fella.
Such was the man on whom fortune, with that blind fatuity that seems to characterize the Jade, thrusts the honor of being the founder of our good city. Our pride almost revolts at the chronicling of such a humiliation, and leads us to with that it were on one worthier and nobler that such a distinction had fallen. But history is inexorable, and we must record facts as they are. J. Fletcher Williams, 1876.
Now, Mr. Williams, before you have a hissy, just remember not all of us get to pick our founders, just that's Volkswagen. Anywho, whiskey is just flowing out this cave, which apparently was okay back then. I don't know. Nobody seems to care what I think. Eventually, one fella decided to name the little makeshift town after Old Pig's Eye, which is certainly one way of doing things.
I looked up inquiringly at Parrant, and seeing his old crooked eye scowling at me, it suddenly popped into my head to date it at Pig's Eye, feeling sure that the place would be recognized, as Parrant was well known along the river. In a little while, an answer was safely received, directed to me at Pig's Eye. Edmund Brissett, 1839.
Well, I was pretty well known at the Blockbuster I gave birth at in 1993, but they definitely did not go and name it after me. Anyway, pretty soon the folks down at Fort Snelling started to notice the soldiers are coming in to work 3 sheets to the darn wind. So the authorities go down to Fountain Cave, but Old Pig's Eye is hiding the booze like my freshman year roommate, Julie Erickson. She's out of prison now. She's really doing so well. Before you know it, the government is doing what they do best, removing the folks they don't like so much. On the bright side, this fella, Reverend Lucien Gaultier, rolls in not long after and builds a chapel, which was frankly a bit overdue if you ask me.
Pig's Eye, converted thou shalt be, like Saul, arise, and be henceforth Saint Paul. Reverend Lucien Gaultier, 1831.
That's not a bad rhyme there, Mr. Gaultier. But let me tell you about the raps I wrote for the PTA Talent Show fundraiser when I managed to rhyme Linda Jacobson and brought a fucking Kringle again. Anyway, that's how Pig's Eye became St. Paul. So next time one of those Cross River folks starts talking about the Orpheum or that ice castle, which I think we can all agree is a bit too much, just remind them that a certain one-eyed bootlegger made it all possible. Well, maybe don't say that. Just say it in your mind.
Minnesota tonight.